The kiss was supposed to last 3 seconds. 5 tops. Riley Martinez never imagined that those few seconds would decide the entire rest of her life. But when his big, tattooed hands wrapped around her waist and pulled her back in, when his deep voice whispered against her ear words that made her whole body shake, "We're not done yet." Riley understood she had just crossed a line there was no walking back from. But let's start from the beginning. It was Friday night, October 28th, and Riley should have been sitting in her tiny Brooklyn apartment, buried in notes for her managerial accounting exam. Instead, she was standing in one of the most expensive penthouses on the Upper East Side, surrounded by strangers, wearing a dress she would never buy for herself, and feeling completely out of place. The music thumped so loud Riley could feel it vibrating in her chest. The people around her all looked like they'd stepped straight off the cover of a fashion magazine, laughing, sipping champagne that cost more than her groceries for a month, acting like their biggest problem was deciding which party to hit tomorrow. Riley did not belong in this world. She was a junior at Stern School of Business, working 2 jobs to pay off $73,000 in student debt. Her usual Friday nights looked like this: 2 cans of cheap instant soup, notes spread across her tiny kitchen table, some quiet playlist humming in the background. But tonight, her roommate and best friend, Madison Pierce, wasn't taking no for an answer. "Seriously, Riley, you have to do this," Madison insisted, fixing her long platinum hair and taking a sip of her drink. "When was the last time you did something spontaneous? Something crazy?" "Last week I ordered a medium coffee instead of a small," Riley shot back, scanning the crowd. "That's crazy enough for me." Madison rolled her eyes. "That is exactly what I'm talking about. You're 22, Riles. 22. And you act like you're 40 with 3 kids. That's called being responsible," Riley muttered, smoothing down her simple black dress. It was modest, long sleeves, hem at the knee, but Madison swore the neckline looked incredible on her. Riley, who had always been self-conscious about her curves, felt a little uneasy with all the attention it was drawing. "Responsible is boring," Madison declared, her dark eyes sparkling with mischief. "Which is why I have a proposal for you." Riley narrowed her eyes. "What kind of proposal?" Madison dug into her tiny purse and pulled out 2 crumpled $100 bills. $200. Cash. Yours, if you do one very simple thing. Riley had the money, then Madison. "What thing?" "Kiss the most dangerous-looking guy at this party." Riley nearly choked on her drink. "You're joking." "I am not joking," Madison said, grinning wide. "Think about it, Riles. $200 covers next week's rent." It was true. Riley worked as a barista from 6 in the morning until 1, then headed downtown to an accounting firm where she worked as an assistant from 2 until 8. Even with 2 jobs, she barely scraped by. $200 was a fortune. But kissing a stranger in a room full of strangers. "Madison, this is insane," Riley started. "Exactly," Madison said triumphantly. "That's the whole point. Do something wild, something you can't predict. Be impulsive." Riley bit her lip, weighing it. It was the single most reckless, irresponsible thing she could possibly do. Exactly the kind of decision she always avoided. But she looked at Madison, her best friend since freshman year, the girl who'd always been there, even when Riley had no money to go out, and saw hope in her eyes. Hope that Riley would finally loosen up, let herself have a little fun. And she thought of her bank account, which had shown $737 that morning. "Fine," she said slowly. "But you pick the guy." Madison squealed and threw her arms around Riley. "Knew you'd do it." Okay, let me look." For the next 10 minutes, Madison scanned the room, sizing up every man with a critical eye. Riley stood beside her, feeling adrenaline start to build in her veins. "What is he doing all the way over there?" Madison suddenly gasped, pointing toward the far corner of the sprawling room. Riley followed her gaze and felt the breath catch in her chest. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, with the Manhattan skyline glittering behind him, was a man who commanded the room without trying. He stood well over 6 feet, with a chest so broad it stretched the fabric of his black shirt tight enough that Riley could make out the outline of muscle underneath. His forearms were powerful, tattoos crawling up from beneath his rolled sleeves and disappearing somewhere past his collar. His hair was dark, almost black, combed back neatly except for a few rebellious strands falling across his forehead. His jaw was strong, shadowed with a short beard, his profile looking like it had been carved from marble. But it wasn't his build that unsettled Riley. It was the air around him. He stood with two other imposing men, but he was clearly the one people approached with respect, almost fear. His dark eyes swept the room with cold, calculated precision, as if cataloging every detail, every threat. Him, Madison said decisively. Definitely the most dangerous guy here. Riley felt a knot rise in her throat. Madison, he looks like, I don't know, like he could kill me with one hand. Exactly, Madison agreed cheerfully. Which makes it even more exciting. Go, Riles. $200 is waiting. Riley took a breath. Then another. It was just a kiss. 3 seconds. What was the worst that could happen? Before she could think better of it, Riley started pushing through the crowd toward him, heart hammering, palms sweating, a cold, dense knot forming in her stomach. The closer she got, the more overwhelming he looked. Dark trousers, black shirt with the sleeves rolled up, forearms covered in intricate ink, roses tangled with snakes, letters in a language she didn't recognize, something that looked like a crown resting on a skull. He was mid-conversation with the two men beside him, both in dark suits, faces serious, when his gaze suddenly shifted to Riley, and for a moment the entire world seemed to stop. His eyes were dark, nearly black, with an intensity that made Riley feel completely exposed. He didn't smile. His expression didn't so much as flicker. He simply studied her with a kind of controlled attention that was terrifying and magnetic at once. Riley stopped in front of him, aware that she was shaking. The men beside him fell silent, watching her with curiosity and something like amusement. Can I help you? The man asked. His voice was low, deep, carrying a faint accent Riley couldn't place. Italian, maybe. Polite. Cold. The voice of someone used to giving orders, not taking them. Riley opened her mouth to answer. Nothing came out. She stood there staring at him like an idiot, feeling her face burn. She started and couldn't finish. The man raised an eyebrow, waiting. It was now or never. Across the room, Madison was watching. $200. One kiss. Before she could lose her nerve, Riley rose onto her toes, placed her hands against his broad chest, and pressed her lips to his. For a fraction of a second, everything froze. His lips were warm, firm, and for a moment he stayed perfectly still, as though caught off guard. Riley had planned this as a quick, 3-second kiss, enough to win the bet, not enough to be truly inappropriate. But then everything changed. His big hands landed on her waist, sudden, firm, and sure, pulling her closer. His mouth moved against hers, taking control of the kiss with an intensity that made Riley's knees go weak. This wasn't a shy, careful kiss between two strangers. This was possession. His tongue brushed her lower lip, demanding entry, and before she realized what she was doing, her mouth opened for him. The kiss deepened, turned hungry, desperate, like this man had been starving for years and had just found something he needed. Riley felt the world spinning. His scent, cedar and expensive cologne, and something darker, something dangerous, filled her senses. The heat of his body pressed through her dress, and his hands on her waist felt like iron, unbreakable. Somewhere in the back of her mind, Riley knew people were staring. She knew this needed to end. She knew she should pull away. But she couldn't. God help her. She could not make herself let go. Finally, he was the one to end it. Though his lips stayed only inches from hers, his breath mixing with her own. Riley opened her eyes. She hadn't even realized she'd closed them, and found herself staring into his dark, intense gaze. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice hoarse, unrecognizable even to her own ears. It was a bet. $200. I'm sorry, that was stupid. She started to step back, suddenly overwhelmed with embarrassment. What had she just done? She'd just kissed a total stranger who looked like he could. Before she could retreat more than a step, his hand caught her wrist. Not painfully, but firmly. Impossible to ignore. Riley froze, staring down at his large hand wrapped around her delicate wrist, then back up at his face. His expression had shifted. Still intense, still controlled. But now there was something else, something dark and possessive that made her breath quicken. We're not done yet, he said quietly. His deep voice was so low only she could hear it. And before Riley could react, before she could even process those words, he pulled her back in and kissed her again. This kiss was even more consuming than the first. One hand tangled in her long dark hair, holding her in place, while the other wrapped around her waist, pulling her so close she could feel every hard line of his body. Riley let out a low sound, somewhere between a sigh and a gasp, and her hands landed against his chest, feeling the hard muscle beneath the thin fabric of his shirt. When he finally broke away, they were both breathing hard. "What's your name?" he asked, his thumb tracing lazy circles along her cheek, a gesture both tender and possessive. "Riley," she answered without thinking. "Riley Martinez." "Riley," he repeated, as if testing the word on his tongue. "Beautiful name." His thumb drifted to her bottom lip, tracing it slowly, and Riley felt a shiver run the length of her body. "And you?" she managed, even as her brain scrambled to catch up. His lips curved into a faint, barely there smile, the first she'd seen. "Dante," he said. "Dante Caruso." Something in Riley's stomach tightened at the sound of that last name. Caruso. Why did that sound familiar? "Look, Dante," she started, trying to regain some control of the situation. This was just a bet. My friend gave me $200 to kiss whoever looked the most dangerous, and I picked you. I'm sorry. $200, he repeated, amusement coloring his tone. That's not nearly enough. Riley blinked. "Excuse me." $200, he said again. "That's far too little for a kiss from me." His arrogance should have annoyed her, should have made her angry. But the way he was looking at her, with that kind of focus, like she was the single most fascinating thing he'd seen in years, made it hard to feel anything but heat spreading through her chest. "I'm sure your ego will survive somehow," Riley shot back, surprising herself with her own boldness. His smile widened, and Riley felt her heart skip a beat. When he smiled like that, he was devastating. "Brave," he said. "I like that." The two men beside Dante exchanged a glance, and one of them, tall, with short blonde hair, leaned in. "Boss," he said quietly, "maybe we should." "Boss." Dante cut in, not taking his eyes off Riley. "Boss." Another wave of unease washed over Riley. What was going on here? But before she could ask, Dante was already guiding her toward a quieter corner of the room, away from curious eyes. "Tell me, Riley Martinez," he said, leaning against the wall, pulling her close, his hands settling on her hips. "Besides the bed, what made you kiss a total stranger?" Riley felt dizzy, like the whole world was spinning too fast. "Honestly," she said, "I have no idea. I never do things like this. I'm a boring person. I study accounting. I work 2 jobs. Most Friday nights I eat instant soup and stare at spreadsheets." "Doesn't sound boring," Dante said, his thumb drawing small circles against her hip through the fabric of her dress. "Sounds responsible." "Same thing," Riley murmured. "No," he said. "It means you're smart. Focused. You have goals." Riley looked at him, surprised. "Most people would say, I need to loosen up." "Most people are idiots," Dante said flatly, leaning in, his lips brushing her ear, his warm breath sending a shiver down her spine. "Looks to me like you're loosening up just fine tonight." Riley felt her face burn. This was an anomaly," she stammered. "Anomaly," he repeated, pulling back just far enough to meet her eyes. "Interesting word." "I'm a business student," she said defensively. "I use interesting words." Dante laughed, a real laugh. Deep, that she felt vibrate through his chest, and it sent something warm and dangerous curling through her stomach. "I like you," he said. "I like you a lot." His intensity was overwhelming. Riley felt like she was standing on the edge of something enormous, something dangerous, and the smallest step in either direction could send her over. "Dante," she started, unsure how to finish the sentence. His expression turned more serious, his dark eyes studying her face with an intensity that left her feeling stripped bare. "How old are you, Riley?" 22, she answered. "And you?" 33, he said. "Too old for you." "I didn't ask," Riley pointed out. His mouth twitched. "No, you didn't. But I should have told you." He paused. "I should also tell you that I'm not a good man, Riley. I'm not what girls like you are looking for." Something in his tone made a cold shiver run through her. "What does that mean?" she asked quietly. "Girls like me?" Dante studied her for a long moment, as though weighing how much to say. "Smart girls," he said finally. "Girls with bright futures. Girls who work 2 jobs and study business and have plans for their lives." His hand rose, gently brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. Girls who shouldn't have anything to do with someone like me. Who are you? Riley whispered, though part of her already knew the answer wouldn't be one she wanted to hear. Dante leaned in, his lips just beside her ear. Someone very, very dangerous, Bella Mia, he said quietly. Someone who hasn't had a woman in 7 years. Someone who just decided you're going to be his. Riley felt the air leave her lungs. I don't understand, she whispered. Dante pulled back, looking directly into her eyes. You will, he promised. Soon. And with that, Dante Caruso, the man Riley had kissed for $200, changed the course of her life forever. Riley couldn't stop staring at him. Dante Caruso stood before her, dark eyes locked on hers, an intensity in them that made her skin feel like it was on fire, his words still echoing in her ears. Someone who just decided you're going to be his. I think I should go, Riley said, her voice smaller than she intended. She tried to step back, but her spine hit the wall behind her. When had he moved her here? Dante didn't move, didn't step back, didn't give her space. Instead, he planted his hand against the wall beside her head, effectively caging her in. Why? He asked calmly. Are you afraid of me? Riley lifted her chin, reaching for the courage she usually saved for exams and job interviews. Should I be? His lips curved into a faint smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Probably, he admitted. But I hope not. None of this makes any sense, Riley said, her heart hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. Very little of my life makes sense, Dante replied, his thumb tracing gently along her cheek. But you, Bella Mia, you're the first thing that has, in a long, long time. Riley felt like she was drowning. Every rational cell in her brain was screaming at her to run, to find Madison and leave this party. But there was another part of her, deeper, darker, a part she'd never known existed, that wanted to stay, that wanted to know more about this dangerous, mysterious man who had kissed her like his life depended on it. I don't know you, she whispered. You don't, Dante agreed. But you will. Before Riley could respond, one of the men who'd been standing with Dante earlier approached. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that looked like it had been broken more than once, and said imperfectly. Boss, he said quietly, his eyes flicking briefly to Riley before returning to Dante. We have a situation. Dante's brow furrowed, but he didn't step away from Riley. What situation? Mikolov's here, the man answered, his tone heavy with meaning. Downstairs. 6 of his men. Riley felt the tension in Dante spike instantly. His jaw tightened, his whole body, relaxed and warm moments earlier, turned to steel, ready for a fight. How much time? He asked sharply. 5 minutes. Maybe less, the man answered. Marco's already evacuating the guests through the back exit. Dante swore under his breath, in what Riley thought was Italian, then looked at her again. Riley, he said, his voice low but firm. You need to come with me. Now. What? Riley blinked, confused. Why? What's happening? There's no time to explain. Dante cut in, taking her hand. His grip was firm, but not painful. Please, Riley, trust me. I don't know you, Riley protested, trying to pull free. I can't just. Riley. Madison pushed through the crowd, eyes wide with fear. 2 large men in black suits followed close behind her, quietly steering guests toward the back doors. Riley, we have to go, Madison said urgently, grabbing her arm. Something's happening. People are saying someone dangerous. Suddenly, chaos erupted from the main room. Shouting, the sound of shattering glass, and then, unmistakable, a gunshot. Riley froze, blood turning to ice. Damn it, Dante muttered. He turned to the man behind him. Luca, get the girls to the roof. Now. Boss, you shouldn't stay here alone. Don't argue with me, Dante growled, and the intensity in his voice made Riley shudder. This wasn't the voice of an ordinary man. This was the voice of someone used to power, someone whose orders meant the difference between life and death. The man called Luca nodded, immediately grabbing Madison's arm. Ladies, with me. Riley, Madison called, reaching out. Dante turned to Riley, his face grave. Go with him, he ordered. Luca will keep you safe. And you? Riley asked, surprising herself with the question. Why did she care? She'd known this man for 20 minutes. Something in his eyes softened. I'll be fine, Bella, he said quietly. He leaned in and kissed her forehead, tender, protective. Go. Now. Riley let Luca and Madison guide her toward the emergency exit, her heart pounding. She glanced over her shoulder and saw Dante walking in the opposite direction, straight into the chaos, his figure calm and lethal. Who on earth was he? The roof was cold. Wind rolled in off the East River, carrying the scent of an autumn night in New York. Riley wrapped her arms around herself, shivering in her thin dress, while Madison stood beside her, equally shaken. Luca stood a few feet away, speaking quietly into his earpiece. From up here, Riley could see the whole Manhattan skyline stretched out, millions of lights flickering in the dark. It was beautiful, surreal, completely at odds with the fear still pulsing through her veins. Riley, Madison whispered, gripping her hand. What in God's name is happening? I don't know, Riley answered honestly. Did you hear that gunshot? Madison nodded, pale in the moonlight. You think someone got hurt? Before Riley could answer, the rooftop door burst open. Dante appeared, followed by 3 more men. They all looked unharmed, but Riley noticed a fresh bruise blooming along Dante's jaw and a tear in his shirt. His eyes found hers immediately, scanning her head to toe. Are you hurt? He asked sharply, closing the distance between them fast. No, we're fine, Riley answered. What happened down there? Dante didn't answer right away. Instead, he shrugged off his jacket and settled it around Riley's shoulders, his hands surprisingly gentle. Nothing you need to worry about, he said finally. That was a gunshot, Riley said flatly. I think I have reason to worry. Dante looked at her, and something like admiration flickered in his dark eyes. You're stubborn, he observed. I'm terrified, Riley corrected, and confused. And I really want to know who you are and what just happened. Dante sighed, running a hand through his hair. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked tired. Fine, he said quietly. But not here. He turned to his men. Luca, take Riley's friend home. Marco, get the car ready. I'm taking Riley with me. What? Riley stepped back. No, I can't just. Riley, please. Dante cut in, taking her hands. I know this is insane. I know you have every right to be scared. But I swear on everything I hold sacred, I will never hurt you. He paused, holding her gaze. But I need to tell you something, and I'd rather do it somewhere we can talk privately. Riley looked at Madison, who looked equally terrified and confused. Go, Madison said quietly. Call me the second you can. If I don't hear from you in an hour, I'm calling the police. Riley nodded, throat tight, and turned back to Dante. Fine, she said. But wherever you're taking me, it had better be somewhere public. Dante's mouth curved slightly. As you wish, Bella. 10 minutes later, Riley sat in the back of a sleek black SUV cutting through the streets of Manhattan. Dante sat beside her, his large frame filling the space, his woodsy, masculine scent wrapping around her. Up front, a young driver with short dark hair hadn't said a single word since Riley climbed in. Where are we going? Riley asked, watching the city lights blur past the window. My place, Dante answered. Riley turned sharply. You said somewhere public. My place is on the Upper East Side, Dante explained calmly. A building with round-the-clock security, a staff lobby, and cameras everywhere. You're safer there than in any cafe in this city. This isn't about whether I'm safe, Riley said through gritted teeth. It's about the fact that I'm not going to a strange man's apartment when I've known him for 30 minutes. 43. Dante corrected, glancing at his expensive watch. For the record. Riley crossed her arms. Now you're being funny. Dante sighed and turned to face her fully. Riley, listen to me. What happened at that party wasn't random violence. It was an attack on me. And now, because you were with me, because people saw us together, you're involved. Riley felt cold fear pour into her bones. What does that mean? Who wanted to attack you? I'll explain everything, Dante promised. But first I need to make sure you're safe. And before you ask, no, I can't simply take you home. If someone was tracking me tonight, they know who you are. And if they know who you are, they know where you live. Riley felt her stomach churn. This is insane, she whispered. This can't actually be happening. I'm sorry, Bella, Dante said quietly, and there was genuine remorse in his voice. But it is happening, and I need you to trust me, at least for the next few hours, until I know you're safe. Riley studied his face, searching for something. There was something in his eyes, raw, sincere, that told her he was telling the truth, that he genuinely was worried about her, which was completely insane considering they'd just met. Fine, she said finally, but only for a few hours. And I'm keeping my phone in my hand the entire time. Of course, Dante agreed. The rest of the ride passed in silence. Riley watched out the window as the buildings shifted from the buzzing chaos of Midtown to the quieter, more elegant streets of the Upper East Side. Finally, the SUV pulled up in front of a tall, glossy glass building with a uniformed doorman waiting out front. "Mr. Caruso," the doorman said, opening the door. His eyes flicked to Riley with brief curiosity, but he said nothing. Dante led Riley through a stunning lobby of marble and gold accents toward a private elevator. He pressed the button marked P, and the elevator began to climb. "P?" Riley asked. "Penthouse," Dante answered. Of course. Riley nearly laughed. Of course this mysterious, dangerous man lived in a penthouse on the Upper East Side. When the elevator doors opened, Riley stepped into a private foyer that opened onto a breathtaking apartment. Dark hardwood floors, soaring ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park and the Manhattan skyline. It was beautiful, elegant, and probably worth more than Riley would earn in her entire life. "Nice," she said dryly. Dante smiled faintly. "Thank you." He gestured to a large, plush sofa. "Sit. I'll get you a drink." "I don't drink," Riley lied. She did, in fact, drink, but she wanted to keep every sense sharp. Dante gave her a skeptical look, but didn't argue. "Water, then." Riley perched carefully on the edge of the sofa, clutching her bag and phone. She watched him move to the open kitchen, all stainless steel and black granite, and filled 2 glasses with water. He came back and handed her one, then sat across from her in an armchair, not beside her on the sofa. Riley appreciated the distance. "Okay," she said, taking a breath. "Tell me everything." Dante leaned forward, elbows on his knees, dark eyes studying her face. "My full name is Dante Caruso," he began. "I'm the head of the Caruso family, one of the 5 largest criminal organizations on the East Coast." Riley felt her breath stop in her chest. You're a mob boss," she whispered. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, because suddenly everything made sense. The way people had looked at him, the bodyguards, the tattoos, the attack. "Yes," Dante confirmed, not breaking eye contact. "I am." Riley stood abruptly, heart pounding. "I have to go," she said, heading for the elevator. "I need to leave. Right now." Dante rose but didn't try to physically stop her. He simply stood there, watching her. "Riley, please, listen to me." "Listen to you?" Riley spun back to face him, panic rising in her chest. "You're a criminal. You kill people. You probably sell drugs, or guns, or I don't even know what else." "I don't sell drugs," Dante said quietly. "It's one of my rules. No drugs. No prostitution. No trafficking." "Oh, well, that makes you a real saint," Riley shot back sarcastically, tears burning in her eyes. How could she have been so stupid? How could she have kissed this man, felt what she felt when he... "I'm not a good man," Dante cut in, his voice low but intense. "I've never claimed to be. I've done things that would make you hate me if you knew. But I swear on my late wife's grave, I will never, ever hurt you." Riley went still. "Your late wife?" Dante nodded slowly. "Isabella," he said quietly, and there was so much pain in his voice that Riley felt her anger dim slightly. "She died 7 years ago. A shooting. She was in the wrong place." He paused, jaw tightening. "At the wrong time. I couldn't protect her." Riley didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to leave, to flee this apartment and never look back. But another part, deeper, more compassionate, saw the pain in his eyes, saw a man carrying the weight of an enormous loss. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Dante gave a sad smile. "So am I," he said. "Every day." For a long moment, they simply stood there, staring at each other across the room. "Why are you telling me this?" Riley asked finally. "Why show me who you really are?" "Because I can't lie to you," Dante said simply. "Not to you. Not when." He paused, searching for the words. "Not when I feel what I feel." "And what do you feel?" Riley whispered. Dante moved toward her slowly, giving her every chance to step back. She didn't. She simply stood there, staring into his dark eyes, feeling her heart hammering in her chest. "Something I haven't felt in 7 years," he said quietly, stopping in front of her. His hand rose, gently cupping her cheek. Something I thought I'd never feel again. From the moment your lips touched mine, Riley Martinez, something in me changed. Like you woke up a part of me I thought had died with Isabella. Riley felt tears gathering in her eyes. Dante, this is insane. We don't even know each other. I know, Dante said, his thumb catching a tear as it slid down her cheek. And I know it's crazy. I know it's too fast. But for 7 years I've lived like a ghost, Riley. Walking, breathing, running my family, but feeling nothing. Nothing until you. I don't know what to say, Riley whispered. Don't say anything, Dante said. Just let me keep you safe. Let me make sure the people who wanted to hurt me tonight never get near you. He paused. And then, if you want to leave, if you want me gone from your life, I'll go. I promise. Riley looked at him, her mind spinning. This was madness. Absolute, complete madness. But looking into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there, feeling the warmth of his hand on her cheek, she couldn't deny that she felt something too. Something powerful, something terrifying, something that could change everything. Okay, she said quietly. I'll stay for tonight. But if I ever feel unsafe, if I ever want to leave, you will, Dante finished for her. I won't stop you. You have my word. Riley nodded, not entirely sure if she was making the best decision of her life or the worst. But when Dante pulled her into his arms, when his strong arms wrapped around her and his scent enveloped her, Riley let herself have one moment of weakness. She let herself feel safe, even if it was in the arms of the most dangerous man she had ever met. Riley woke up in the most comfortable bed she'd ever slept in. For a moment, caught in that hazy space between sleep and waking, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came flooding back. The party, the kiss, the gunshots, Dante revealing he was a mob boss. Her eyes flew open and she sat up sharply, looking around the huge bedroom. The room was bigger than her entire apartment. High ceilings, massive windows overlooking Central Park, furniture that probably cost more than a year of her tuition. The bed she'd slept in was king-size, the sheets like silk under her fingers. She was wearing someone's shirt, large, masculine, smelling of expensive cologne and something purely him. Dante must have given it to her when she'd finally fallen asleep on the sofa the night before, emotionally wrung out. Riley checked her phone on the nightstand. 9:30 a.m. 23 missed calls from Madison, around 40 texts. She fired back immediately. I'm alive. Everything's fine. Call you soon, I promise. Getting out of bed, she noticed someone had folded her dress from the night before and set it on a chair with her shoes. But there was also new clothing, tags still on, folded neatly on the dresser. Riley moved closer, heart pounding. Jeans in her size. A soft cashmere sweater. Luxury lace underwear, exactly her size. Even shoes, comfortable leather booties, her size. Like her. Riley left the bedroom, pulling Dante's shirt down to mid-thigh. The penthouse looked even more stunning in daylight, sunlight pouring through the massive windows and scattering gold across the dark wood floors. She heard voices from the kitchen and moved closer, finding Dante standing by the island, speaking quietly on the phone. He wore gray sweatpants and a black t-shirt that stretched across his muscled chest. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd just showered, jaw shadowed with stubble. He looked dangerously handsome. He noticed her immediately, dark eyes finding hers, and quickly wrapped up his call. Good morning, Bella, he said, and there was a warmth in his voice she hadn't expected. Sleep well? I did, Riley answered, suddenly very aware she was wearing only his shirt. That bed is incredibly comfortable. Good, Dante said, his eyes sliding over her in a way that made her skin flush. Hungry? Can I make you breakfast? You cook? Riley asked, surprised. His lips curved into a half-smile. My nana made sure every one of her grandsons knew how to cook. She used to say a man who can't feed his family isn't a real man. Something in the way he said it, with so much love and respect for his grandmother, made warmth spread through Riley's chest. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman, she said quietly. She was, Dante agreed, a flicker of sadness crossing his eyes. She passed 5 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry, Riley said sincerely. Dante nodded, then visibly shifted the subject. I see you found the clothes, he said, nodding at the shirt she wore. The real outfit's on the dresser. I hope it's the right size. Riley eyed him suspiciously. How exactly did you know my size? I have a very good eye, Dante answered, his eyes glinting playfully. Also, my assistant is a professional. Riley bit her lip. Dante, that stuff looks expensive. I can't. Let me take care of you, he cut in gently. Please. Something in his voice, in the way he looked at her, made her protest die on her lips. Instead, she simply nodded. Thank you, she said quietly. Dante smiled. A real, warm smile that transformed his whole face, making him look younger, lighter. You're welcome, Bella. Now go get dressed. I'm making scrambled eggs. 20 minutes later, Riley sat at the large dining table, wearing the new jeans and the cashmere sweater that felt like a cloud against her skin. In front of her sat a plate of perfectly cooked scrambled eggs, fresh toast, fruit, and a glass of fresh squeezed orange juice. Dante sat across from her, sipping espresso, watching her with a strange expression. What? Riley asked, suddenly self-conscious. Nothing, Dante said quietly. It's just nice, having someone at the table. Riley felt her chest tighten, imagining him here, in this enormous penthouse, alone for 7 years, eating in silence, sleeping in an empty bed. Dante, she started, not sure how to finish. He stood and moved toward her instead, his large hand settling gently on her shoulder. We need to talk, he said seriously. About what happens now. Riley set down her fork, suddenly losing her appetite. Okay, she said quietly. Dante sat in the chair beside her, turning to face her fully. The people who attacked last night are a Russian organization run by a man named Alexei Mikolov, he began. He's been trying to move in on East Coast territory for months. Last night's attack was a message, an attempt to intimidate me. And you? Riley asked. Were you hurt? No, Dante assured her. Neither was anyone on my side. He paused, jaw tightening. But they were at that party because they knew I'd be there. And now, because you were with me, because people saw us together, they think you matter to me. Which makes me a target, Riley finished, feeling cold settle in her stomach. Yes, Dante confirmed. I made you one. Riley stood abruptly, breath quickening. No, she said, starting to pace. This can't be happening. I have exams. I have work. I have a life. I know, Dante said quietly, standing and moving toward her. And I'm sorry, Riley. If I'd known, if I could turn back time. But you can't, Riley said, tears rising. So what now? What am I supposed to do now? Dante took her face in his large, warm hands, forcing her to look at him. Now, he said firmly, you let me protect you. You can't go back to your apartment. Not right now. Not until I know this situation is under control. For how long? Riley whispered. I don't know, Dante admitted. Weeks, maybe. I can't stay here for weeks, Riley protested. I have classes, I have work. Your classes can go remote for a while, Dante said. I'm already handling that. And as for your job, he paused. How much do you make, between both jobs? Riley narrowed her eyes. Why? Just tell me, Dante pressed. Around $1,300 a week, Riley answered reluctantly. Before taxes. Fine, Dante said, pulling out his phone and firing off a quick text. You'll make $2,500 a week for as long as you're here. Riley recoiled, eyes wide. What? No, you can't just. I can, Dante cut in. And I will. Riley, this situation is my fault. The least I can do is make sure you don't lose money because of it. Dante, that's too much. It's nothing, he said firmly. Literally nothing, to me. But if it makes you feel better, think of it as a job, helping my assistant, whatever makes you comfortable. Riley stared at him, mind spinning. This was too much, too fast. What about my student loans? She asked suddenly, remembering something he'd said the night before. Dante hesitated. What about them? You said something about paying them off, Riley said, crossing her arms. Last night on the roof. I said a lot of things last night, Dante answered evasively. Dante, Riley said in a warning tone. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Fine. Yes, I checked. You have $73,247 in student debt. Riley felt her jaw drop. How did you? I have resources, Dante said simply. And yes, I'm going to pay it off. Absolutely not, Riley exclaimed. That's nothing, Dante repeated, moving closer. Riley, listen to me. For someone in my position, that amount is literally nothing. But for you, that's years of stress. Years of working 2 jobs. Years of putting your life on hold. You can't just pay off my debt, Dante, Riley said, feeling overwhelmed. Give me one good reason why not. Because I barely know you, Riley exclaimed. Because it's not normal. Because, Dante said quietly, you're afraid of what it means. You're afraid that if you let me help you, if you let me take care of you, it means all of this is real. Riley felt tears sliding down her cheeks. This is insane, she whispered. I know, Dante said, pulling her into his arms. I know, Bella. But sometimes the best things in life are insane. Riley let herself have one more moment of weakness, resting her head against his chest, listening to the steady, strong beat of his heart. I don't know what to do, she admitted quietly. You don't have to know right now, Dante said, kissing the top of her head. Just let me protect you. Let me take care of you. The rest will come when it comes. For a long moment they stood there, wrapped up in each other in the sunlit room. Finally Riley pulled back, wiping her eyes. I need to call Madison, she said. She's probably about to send the FBI after me. Dante smiled. Of course. But Riley, his expression turned serious. Don't tell her too much. The less she knows, the safer she is. Riley nodded, understanding, and dialed Madison, who picked up on the first ring. Riley Martinez, do you have any idea how scared I was? I'm sorry, Mad, Riley said, walking off to the bedroom for privacy. I should have called sooner. Where are you? Madison asked. Are you safe? Did that guy hurt you? No, Riley assured her. No, he's fine. More than fine. What does that mean? Madison asked suspiciously. Riles, what is going on? Riley took a breath. I can't tell you everything right now, she said. But Mad, I think I've gotten myself into something big. Something really big. You like him, Madison said. It wasn't a question. Riley paused. She barely knew Dante. But at the same time, she felt something she'd never felt before. Something intense and terrifying and completely impossible to resist. I think I do, she admitted finally. Okay. Madison took a breath. Okay, that's fine. Just be careful. I will. And call me every day. Or at least text so I know you're alive. I promise, Riley said. After hanging up, Riley returned to the living room and found Dante speaking with two men she recognized from the night before. One was Luca, the tall blonde who'd led them to the roof. All three fell silent when they saw her. Sorry, Riley said. I didn't mean to interrupt. You're not interrupting, Dante said, holding out his hand. Come here, Riley. She approached carefully, and Dante pulled her to his side, his arm wrapping protectively around her waist. Riley, this is Luca, he said, nodding at the blonde man. My consigliere. And this is Marco. He nodded at the other man, dark-haired, tattooed. Head of my security. Both men nodded to her respectfully. Ma'am, Lucas said. Please, just Riley, she said, feeling odd about the formality. Luca and Marco will be part of your security team, Dante explained. Wherever you go, at least two of my men will go with you. Riley blinked. Security team? Yes, Dante said firmly. It's not negotiable, Riley. She wanted to protest, wanted to say this was absurd, that she didn't need bodyguards. But looking at the serious faces of the three men in front of her, she understood this wasn't a game. This was her new life now, at least for a while. Fine, she conceded quietly. Dante kissed her temple, his hand tightening at her hip. Good girl, he murmured. For the next hour, Riley listened as Dante discussed security arrangements with his men, extra guards, route changes, safe locations. It was overwhelming and surreal at once. At one point, Dante had to take an important call, leaving Riley alone with Luca and Marco. Can I ask you something? Riley said, feeling uncomfortable. Can you tell me who exactly Dante is? I mean, I know he's the boss, but... Luca and Marco exchanged a look. The boss is one of the most powerful men on the East Coast, Luca said finally. He runs territory from Boston to Baltimore. Hundreds of men answer to him. But he's also fair, Marco added. He doesn't hurt innocent people. He has a code. Rules. That's more than most people in this business can say. And his wife? Riley asked quietly. Isabella. Both men's expressions turned somber. The best woman I ever knew, Lucas said quietly. When she died, the boss died too, in a way. He kept walking, talking, running the family, but there was no life in him. No joy. Until last night, Marco added, glancing at Riley. This morning, he came back different. First time in 7 years we've actually seen him smile. Riley felt warmth bloom in her chest, mixed with an enormous sense of responsibility. I don't want to hurt him, she whispered. Then don't, Lucas said simply. The boss doesn't deserve any more pain. He's had enough for one lifetime. Before Riley could respond, Dante returned to the room, his face tense. We need to go, he said sharply to Luca and Marco. What's happening now? Riley asked, sudden fear rising. Dante turned to her, his expression softening. Nothing you need to worry about, he said, kissing her forehead. Stay here. I'll be back in a few hours. Dante. Trust me, he cut in gently. Everything will be fine. And then he was gone, out the door with Luca and Marco, leaving Riley alone in the vast penthouse. Riley moved to the windows, watching Manhattan stretch out below. Somewhere out there was her old life, her apartment, her job, her routine, everything she knew. But here, in this gilded penthouse, with a mob boss who claimed she was his, this was an entirely new life. And Riley had no idea if she was terrified or thrilled. Maybe both. Riley spent the next few hours exploring the penthouse. There was an enormous library full of books in several languages, Italian, English, French, a home gym with professional equipment, and an office with a large mahogany desk and walls covered in what looked like family photos. Riley moved closer, studying them. A young Dante, maybe in his early 20s, his arm around a beautiful dark-haired woman in a white wedding dress. Isabella, she guessed. She looked happy, radiant. Beside it hung an older photo, sepia-toned, a group of men in suits, faces serious. At the bottom it read, Caruso Family, 1989. Riley understood with sudden clarity. Dante wasn't just a mob boss. He came from a family of criminals. It was in his blood. The penthouse door burst open, making Riley jump. Dante walked in, his shirt stained with blood. Riley gasped, rushing toward him. Dante, my God, you're hurt. It's not my blood, he said quickly, gripping her arms. Riley, I'm fine. It's not mine. Then whose is it? Riley whispered, feeling sick. Dante sighed, guiding her to the sofa. Mikolov sent a message, he explained. One of my men was attacked. I had to deal with it. Riley stared at the blood on his shirt, then at his face, his dark eyes that had seen things she never would, that had done things she never would. Did you kill someone? She asked quietly. Dante didn't answer right away. He simply looked at her, jaw tight. Yes, he said finally. Yes, Riley. I did. Riley felt her stomach turn. She'd known, theoretically, that Dante was a dangerous man. But hearing it out loud, seeing the evidence on his shirt. Maybe I should go, she whispered. Something in Dante's eyes broke. Riley, please. I don't know if I can do this, Dante, she said, tears rising. I don't know if I can be part of this world. Dante took her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. Listen to me, he said intensely. The man I killed today brutally attacked one of my men, a man with a family, 2 kids. And Mikolov sent him to send me a message, to show me he could reach the people who matter to me. And what does that have to do with me? Riley asked. Everything, Dante said. Because now you're someone who matters to me. And if I let anyone think they can hurt you, that I'm weak, they'll come for you, Riley. They'll come for you to get to me. Riley felt tears running freely. This is too much now, she whispered. It's too much, Dante. I know, he said quietly, wrapping his arms around her. I know, Bella. And if you want to leave, if this is too much, I'll have my people take you wherever you want to go. I'll give you money. I'll give you protection until the situation settles, and then you'll never have to see me again. Riley looked at this complicated, dangerous, surprisingly tender man who had somehow gotten under her skin in a single night. What if I stay? She asked quietly. What does that mean? Dante looked at her with such intensity, Riley felt her breath catch. It means, he said slowly, that you're mine. Under my protection, under my care, and I won't let anyone hurt you, ever. It also means, he continued, that you'll have to accept who I am, what I do. I won't lie to you, Riley. I won't pretend to be someone else. Riley breathed deeply, mind spinning. Every rational part of her told her to run, to walk out of this penthouse and never look back. But looking into Dante's eyes, feeling the warmth of his arms around her, Riley remembered something Madison had said earlier. When was the last time you did something crazy? And the truth was, Riley had spent her whole life being careful, being responsible, playing it safe. Maybe it was time to live a little dangerously. Okay, she said quietly. I'll stay a while. Let's see where this goes. Something in Dante's face relaxed, his smile so genuine, so full of relief, that Riley felt her heart squeeze. Thank you, he whispered, kissing her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Thank you, Bellamy. And as Riley returned his kiss, feeling the tension between them turning into something warm and desperate, she knew she'd crossed the point of no return. She was in this now, wherever it led. And for the first time in her life, Riley let herself stop thinking about the consequences. She let herself simply feel. 3 days passed like a dream. Riley spent them in Dante's penthouse, learning the rhythm of this strange new life. Mornings began with breakfast together. Dante always woke first and made coffee exactly the way she liked it, a splash of milk, a spoon of sugar. Days filled with her online classes while Dante worked in his office, handling matters Riley preferred not to think too hard about. Evenings were her favorite part. Dante always cooked something Italian, recipes from his nonna, and they talked about everything and nothing. Her dreams of opening her own accounting firm, his childhood in Brooklyn growing up in a family where loyalty meant everything, books, movies, music, and about Isabella. On the second night, over a glass of wine, Dante finally told her the whole story. I met her when I was 24, he said quietly, his fingers tracing idle patterns on Riley's hand as they sat together on the sofa. She was a teacher at an elementary school in the Bronx. I tried to buy her a coffee, spilled it all over her white blouse. Riley smiled despite the seriousness in his tone. Romantic start. She thought I was a complete idiot, Dante continued, a faint smile appearing at the memory. But I took her to dinner to apologize. Then there was another dinner. And another. 6 months later, I proposed. Did she know who you were? Riley asked quietly. What you did? Yes, Dante nodded. I told her from the start. I couldn't lie to her. Isabella was so good. Riley, too good for someone like me. But she loved me anyway. She used to say everyone deserves a second chance, that everyone deserves love. His voice cracked on the last word, and Riley squeezed his hand. What happened? She whispered, though she wasn't sure she wanted the answer. Dante took a deep breath, jaw tightening. It was an accidental shooting, he said finally. I was in a war with another family. Isabella was in the wrong place. At the wrong time. A bullet meant for me hit her instead. Riley felt tears rise. Dante, that wasn't your fault. It was, he said sharply, his dark eyes burning with pain. She was my wife. My job was to protect her. And I failed. You can't blame yourself for something you couldn't control, Riley said gently. I can, Dante said. And I have, every day, for 7 years. He turned, looking deep into her eyes. That's why I won't fail you, Riley. Whatever happens, whatever it costs, I will protect you. The intensity in his voice made Riley shiver. I believe you, she whispered. And the truth was, she did. Despite the madness of this whole situation, despite who Dante was, Riley felt safer with him than she'd ever felt with anyone. That night, as they lay together in Dante's bed, him in sweatpants, her in his t-shirt, the space between them charged with a tension neither one was ready to cross yet, Riley finally asked something that had been nagging at her since that first night. Dante, she whispered into the dark. Yes, Bella. His voice was low, sleepy. Why me? She asked quietly. Out of every woman at that party. Why me? For a long moment, Dante didn't answer. Then she felt him shift closer, his arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. You want the truth? He asked quietly, his breath warm against her ear. Always, Riley answered. I saw you before you came over to me, Dante said. You were standing with your friend, looking like you wanted to be anywhere else. You wore that modest black dress in a room full of women trying to get noticed. You kept to yourself, watching everyone else. Riley listened, heart pounding. And then you walked up to me, Dante continued. The most dangerous-looking man in the room, by your own words. You were terrified. I saw it in your eyes. But you did it anyway. And when you kissed me, he paused, his arm tightening around her. When you kissed me, for the first time in 7 years, I felt something other than emptiness. I felt alive, Riley. I felt hope. Riley turned in his arms, facing him now in the dark. I felt something too, she whispered. Something I'd never felt before. Dante's hand rose, cupping her cheek. What do you feel now? He asked quietly. Riley breathed deep, knowing her next words would change everything. I feel terrified, she admitted. I feel overwhelmed. But I also feel more alive than I've ever felt in my life. Dante kissed her then, slow and deep, with a tenderness that made Riley's eyes fill with tears. This wasn't the hungry, desperate kiss of that first night. It was something deeper, something that spoke of promises and possibilities. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me, Riley, he whispered. Not just for a few days. Not just until the situation calms down. Stay with me. Riley felt tears sliding down her cheeks. This is insane, she whispered. The best things usually are, Dante answered. And Riley, who had spent her whole life making safe, sensible decisions, chose for the first time to act completely, recklessly, on feeling alone. Okay, she said. I'll stay. On the fifth day, Riley woke to the sound of voices coming from the living room. She stepped out of the bedroom, dressed in jeans and one of the cashmere sweaters Dante had bought her, and found him in the living room with Luca and 3 men she didn't recognize. Everyone turned when she entered, and the conversation stopped abruptly. Sorry, Riley started. I didn't mean to interrupt. You're not interrupting, Dante said immediately, holding out his hand. Come here, Bella. Riley moved closer, and Dante pulled her to his side, his arms settling protectively around her waist. Gentlemen, he said, looking at the men in front of him. This is Riley Martinez. My Donna. Riley blinked. Donna. Even without knowing Italian, she understood the meaning in this context. His woman, his partner. The men nodded with respect, and the oldest of them, a man in his 50s with gray hair, spoke first. Signora Riley, he said, with a heavy Italian accent. It's an honor. The pleasure's mine, Riley answered, uncomfortable with all the attention. Dante glanced at her. I have business to handle, he said quietly. It'll take a few hours. Luca will stay with you. Okay, Riley said, though a sudden anxiety hit her. She didn't like it when Dante left. Didn't like not knowing where he went, what he did, whether he'd be safe. Dante must have seen something in her face, because he leaned in and kissed her forehead. I'll be back, Bella, he promised quietly. I always come back to you. And then he was gone, along with the other 3 men, leaving Riley alone with Luca. Luca smiled kindly. Hungry, Signora? I can make breakfast. Just Riley, she corrected. And yes, please. Thank you, Luca. As they sat together at the kitchen counter eating the omelet Luca had made, Riley couldn't hold back her curiosity. Luca, she started. Can I ask you something? Of course, Luca answered. Why does everyone treat me with so much respect? She asked. I mean, I get that I'm with Dante, but I barely know him. All of this happened so fast. Luca set down his fork, turning to face her. Signora Riley, he said seriously. The boss hasn't brought a woman to this house since Isabella died. Not one. He hasn't dated, hasn't been intimate with anyone. For 7 years he lived like a monk, completely devoted to the family. Riley listened, her heart beating faster. So when he brought you here, Luca continued. When he called you his Donna, that was a statement. To us, to other families, to everyone. He's saying you're under his protection. That hurting you means war with him. Riley felt the weight of those words settle onto her shoulders. That's a lot of responsibility, she whispered. Yes, Luca agreed. But the boss wouldn't do this if he didn't believe it was worth it. That you're the one. The one. Riley felt tears burn in her eyes. I don't know if I'm ready for this, she admitted. Luca smiled gently. No one's ever ready for love, Signora. But that doesn't mean it's not worth the risk. Dante returned late in the afternoon, looking tired but unharmed. Riley threw herself into his arms, not caring that Luca was still in the room. I missed you, she whispered into his chest. Dante laughed, the sound deep and warm. I was gone 4 hours, Bella. I know, Riley said, not letting go. 4 hours too many. She felt Dante kiss the top of her head. I have something for you, he said quietly. Riley pulled back, looking at him questioningly. Dante reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Riley's heart stopped. Dante, she started, panic in her voice. This isn't. It's not an engagement ring, he assured her quickly, opening the box. I'm not that fast, Bella. Inside was a beautiful necklace, a delicate white gold chain with a small key-shaped pendant. This was the first gift I ever gave Isabella, Dante said quietly, lifting the necklace out. The key to my heart, I told her. After she died, I carried it in my pocket for 7 years. A reminder of what I lost. Riley stared at the necklace, tears rising. But now, Dante continued, his dark eyes meeting hers, I want you to have it. Because you opened something I thought was closed forever. You gave me a second chance at happiness, Riley. A second chance at living. Dante, Riley whispered, tears falling freely. I can't. It was hers. And now it's yours, Dante said firmly. Isabella would want me to be happy, Riley. To find someone who makes me feel alive again. And you do. Every single day. Riley let him fasten the necklace around her neck, feeling the weight of the key settle right over her heart. Thank you, she whispered, for trusting me, for showing me this world, for. Dante silenced her with a kiss, his lips moving against hers with a desperation that made her knees weak. This time, when she kissed him back, when her arms wound around his neck and her body pressed against his, there was no hesitation. No fear. Only want. Need. Something raw that had been building between them since that very first kiss. Riley. Dante murmured against her mouth, his hands tightening on her hips. If you don't stop me now. I'm not stopping you, Riley whispered, meeting his eyes directly. I don't want to stop, Dante. Not anymore. Something in his eyes lit up, dark and dangerous and utterly magnetic. Are you sure? He asked, his voice rough. Because if we do this, Riley, there's no going back. You'll be mine. Completely. In every way. I already am, Riley said simply. I have been, since the moment you kissed me and said, we're not done yet. Dante made a low sound, somewhere between a groan and a growl, and lifted her effortlessly, her legs wrapping around his waist on instinct. He carried her to the bedroom, kicking the door shut behind them, his lips never leaving hers. He closed the bedroom door behind them, and everything that had been building between them for days finally gave way to the dark. There was no more distance left between them, no more hesitation. Only two people who had found, against every reasonable odds, exactly what they'd been missing. When morning came and dawn painted the sky gold above the city, Riley lay in Dante's arms, her head resting on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Something had changed between them, permanently, and looking up at him, seeing the tenderness mixed with quiet certainty in his dark eyes, Riley knew this had been the decision that was meant to be, reckless, illogical, and completely right. Riley woke the next morning wrapped in Dante's arms, her head on his chest, his strong arms holding her protectively. Sunlight spilled through the windows, scattering gold light across their tangled bodies. Good morning, Bella Mia, Dante murmured, his voice deep and sleepy. Good morning, Riley whispered, looking up at him. For a long moment, they simply gazed at each other, smiling like a pair of fools. I still think this is insane, Riley said finally. It's the very definition of insane, Dante agreed, laughing. But do you regret it? Riley thought about her old life, her tiny apartment, her 2 jobs, the endless days packed with work and stress and no time for anything else. And then she thought about this, feeling alive, wanted, protected, laughing with Dante over dinner, the way he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. No, she said quietly. I don't regret a single moment. Dante kissed her then, slow and thorough, like they had all the time in the world. Good, he murmured against her mouth. Because I plan on keeping you forever, Riley Martinez. Forever's a long time, Riley teased. Not long enough, Dante said seriously. It'll never be long enough with you. Riley felt happy tears rise in her eyes. I love you, she whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Dante's face softened, something in his eyes melting. I love you too, Bella, he said quietly. More than I thought I could ever love anyone again. They stayed there for a long while, tangled together, talking quietly about the future, about how Riley would move her things, how they'd merge their lives together, how he'd make sure she was always safe. What about school? Riley asked. My career. You'll finish school, Dante said firmly, and you'll have whatever career you want, just with better security than most accountants. Riley laughed. That'll be interesting, she said. Picture clients showing up to meetings and seeing guards at the door. They'll think you're a very good accountant, Dante joked. If you need that level of security, You must be worth a fortune. Riley felt a wave of happiness wash over her. All of this was so surreal, so impossible, but it also felt so right. Dante, she said quietly. What about Mikolov? The threat. Dante's face turned serious. We're handling it, he said. There's a peace deal on the table. If he accepts, everything settles. If not, he paused. We'll have to take other measures. Riley knew what that meant. She knew Dante's world was full of violence, danger, things she'd never fully understand. But she also knew Dante would do anything, absolutely anything, to protect her. I trust you, she said simply. Dante pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. I know, Bella, he whispered. And I swear I will never abuse that trust. A month later, Riley stood in the living room of the penthouse, looking out over Central Park below. The leaves had turned, painting the park in oranges and reds and gold. Her things were already moved in. Not that there had been much. The modest contents of her old apartment, now folded into Dante's luxurious world. Madison had come to help her unpack, her eyes wide with wonder the entire time. Riles, she said, looking around the massive space. Your life is like a movie. Riley laughed. Tell me about it. Are you happy? Madison asked seriously. Really happy? Riley thought about the night before, about feeling safe in Dante's arms, laughing as he told her stories about his family, the way he looked at her like she was his entire world. Yes, she said quietly. I am. Really. Madison hugged her tight. That's all that matters to me, she whispered. Just promise you'll be careful. If you ever need help. I'll call, Riley promised. Always. Now, a week later, Riley stood alone in the living room, fingers absently touching the key hanging around her neck. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dante. Meeting's running long. Should be home by 8. Miss you, Bellamia. Riley smiled, texting back. Miss you too. Be safe. She set down her phone and heard the doorbell ring. She frowned. Luca was downstairs in the lobby, so whoever this was must have already cleared security. Riley opened the door to find a delivery man holding an enormous bouquet of red roses. Delivery for Riley Martinez, he said. That's me, Riley answered, taking the flowers. Thank you. As she closed the door, she found a small card tucked among the roses. She opened it, expecting a sweet note from Dante. Instead, her blood ran cold. Pretty flowers for a pretty girl. It would be such a shame if something happened to her. M. Mikolov. Riley dropped the roses, her hands shaking. How had he found her here? How had he gotten past security? Her phone rang again. This time Dante was calling, not texting. Dante, she answered, voice full of panic. Riley, listen to me, he said sharply. Luca's already on his way up. Lock every door. Stay in the bedroom. Do you understand? How did you know? Someone bribed the delivery man. Dante explained quickly. We already have him. I just need to make sure you're safe. I'm 10 minutes out, Bella. 10 minutes, and I'm there. Riley ran to the bedroom, locking the door behind her. Her heart pounded, but she tried to stay calm. I'm in the bedroom, she said into the phone. Doors locked. Good girl, Dante said, and there was deep relief in his voice. Stay there. Don't open for anyone except Luca or me. For the next 10 minutes, which felt like an eternity, Riley sat on the bed clutching the phone, listening to Dante's steady voice the entire time. Finally, she heard voices outside, then a knock on the door. Riley, Dante's deep voice called. It's me, Bella. Are you safe? Open the door. Riley opened it and threw herself into his arms, her body trembling with adrenaline and relief. Shoo, Dante murmured, holding her tight. I've got you. You're safe. He knew where I was, Riley whispered into his chest. How did he know? I don't know yet, Dante said, his voice hard as steel. But I'll find out. And I'll take care of this. Riley looked up at him, seeing cold fury in his eyes. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. Dante looked at her for a long moment, a struggle in his face. Finally he sighed. Something I should have done months ago, he said. I'm ending this once and for all. Riley knew what that meant. She knew the man who'd threatened her, Mikolov, wouldn't survive the week. Part of her, the small moral part, should have been horrified, should have protested. But the larger part of her, the part that loved Dante, that trusted him with her life, simply nodded. Do what you have to do, she said quietly. Just come back to me. Dante kissed her then, desperate and deep. Always, Bella, he promised. I'll always come back to you. 72 hours later, it was over. Riley didn't know the details. She didn't want to. But Dante came back to her unharmed and said two words that changed everything. It's done. Mikolov was no longer a threat. The other East Coast families had accepted Dante as the undisputed leader. Peace had been restored, and Riley was safe. That night, they lay together in bed, her head on his chest, his fingers lazily combing through her hair. What now? Riley asked quietly. Now, Dante said, we live normally. Well, as normal as possible, considering who I am. Riley laughed softly. I'm not entirely sure what that means. It means, Dante said, shifting to look at her, you finish school. You start your career. Maybe someday open that accounting firm you've been dreaming about. And you? Riley asked. Me. Dante said, thumb tracing her cheek. I'll be here. With you. Protecting you. Loving you. Building a life with you. Riley felt tears rise. Sounds good, she whispered. Sounds perfect, Dante corrected. And when he kissed her, slow and thorough, Riley knew that no matter what the future held, no matter the challenges, the dangers, the complications of loving someone like Dante, it was worth it. Because she'd found something she never knew she was looking for. She'd found a place she belonged. Someone who saw her, truly saw her, and loved her anyway. She'd found a home. And no matter how crazy, how reckless, how impossible this whole journey seemed, Riley knew one thing for certain. She would do it all again in a heartbeat. Because sometimes the best things in life come from the places you least expect them. Sometimes all it takes is the courage to kiss a stranger at a party and let him change your life forever. Epilogue. 1 year later, Riley stood in front of a mirror in an exclusive boutique on Fifth Avenue, looking at the most beautiful dress she'd ever seen. White, sleek, elegant, exactly what she wanted. Madison stood behind her, tears rolling down her face. I can't believe you're getting married, she said, wiping her eyes. Neither can I, Riley admitted, touching the key hanging around her neck. The same key Dante had given her a year ago. The key to his heart. Today it would gain a ring. Vows. A promise, forever. Dante was waiting for her in a small private chapel on Long Island, surrounded only by close family and friends. He'd wanted something grand, a massive, extravagant wedding that would shake up all of New York. But Riley wanted something intimate, something real. And Dante, being the man who gave her everything, said yes. Ready? Madison asked, holding out her hand. Riley looked at herself in the mirror one more time. At the woman who had once been a terrified student working 2 jobs. At the woman who dared to make a wild bet and kissed the most dangerous man at a party. At the woman who found love in the most impossible place imaginable. Yes, Riley said, smiling. I'm ready. And as she walked down the aisle an hour later, watching Dante stand at the altar in his black suit, his dark eyes full of love and promise, Riley knew she had made the right decision. Maybe it started in madness, but it ended in love. And that was all that mattered. The end.